Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor and privilege of representing the three guys of the Three Guys podcast. Today, we're here to talk with Cesar Wurm with IHG and Brad Rahinsky with Hotel Equities about the topic that's most important to everybody, sobriety.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to share some experiences, some history, and some inspiration, hopefully in the process. All right. So Cesar has written this book about his journey. It's getting a lot of press these days. A lot of people are talking about it because it really is inspirational. And before we get into the questions, wanted to just share a brief history. The reason that Brad is here is Brad is the guy, when he was director of sales and marketing at the Sheraton Atlanta Hotel, who hired me and hired Cesar.
Big mistake.
And at the time, he said to me, he said, listen, this guy Cesar's brand new, help him out. So Cesar used to come to me with questions, etc. And then I just watched his career grow, and now he's in an amazing position, and I'm still in the sales department, but it's an honor every day, right? So anyways, Brad Rahinsky, you're the guy who's responsible for this. A little history about yourself.
Yeah, sure. And look, hindsight 2020 probably shouldn't have put you two together, but nonetheless, here we are. Yeah, Brad Rahinsky. I'm a Philly kid. I got 5 kids. Live down in Georgia. I've been in the hotel business since 1987. Started off dragging bags to rooms, and best job I ever had. And here I am, still in the business, and just love it every day. It's a great industry. More importantly, I have a tremendous family. My wife's a rock star. My kids are all better than I deserve, and life is ultimately about who you run with. My father always said that you run with good people, you'll be okay. You run with knuckleheads, you're going to get yourself in trouble. That's really what today's about, running with the right people and making sure that they lead you and help guide you in the right direction, particularly when you're having some difficult times and challenges in your life. And so just honored to be friends with these guys for the past quarter of a century, and it's good to see everybody.
It's great to have you here. So thank you. Both these guys, 1,300 miles up from Atlanta to be here, so we are honored. Now, Cesar, a little bit about your style.
Yeah. Well, great to be here with you. Be together after 20 plus years, working together and having you guys as friends. It's been quite a journey. Originally from Brazil, being here in the U.S. For 23 years, when I thought it would be 1 year to do an internship when we first start working together, and just so happy, like Brad, just being very fortunate and blessed to, make great connections throughout the last few years, have wonderful people in my life, wonderful family. We have a daughter, 13 years old, and like you, just being very, very blessed to have great mentors, learn about the industry, be able to grow in the industry, and hopefully be able to now help the new generation, right? Join us and then share the life experiences too, right? That we learned along the way, the things that we've not so necessarily proud of, but you learn, you grow, adjust, and go from there.
And make the best of it. And a positive attitude is everything, right? So my name is Tom Counts. I have been friends with the three guys for a long time. I've been on a few of the podcasts. Brian calls me the fourth guy because I've been on so many times, but I bet he says that to everybody, But I'm just so happy to be here. I started in the hotel business 1982, front desk at the Sheraton Boston, and it has been downhill ever since. But I was fortunate enough that Brad hired me at the Sheraton Atlanta right after 9/11. It was just a couple months when most hotels were laying people off. Brad just got into aggressive mode, and we set out to put that hotel on the map in the pharmaceutical market. And along the way, we had a ton of fun. It was great. The interactions, the off-the-cuff stuff. I mean, we really did a lot of things that we can't talk about today for all the right reasons, but it was just such a blast and an honor to be able to work with these guys for a few years. And I wanted to get into right now that I work at the Hyatt Centric Faneuil Hall. All right. And we are a very busy destination, and it's great getting back in the hotel business. I was off for COVID and seeing the progression of how businesses operate. back in the day when we worked together, if someone was coming to the hotel, we automatically sent them a bottle of booze or a bottle of wine or whatever, and let them enjoy their evening in whatever suite we upgraded them to. Now, we go out of our way to make people feel like we're sending them something that they're going to appreciate, and most of the time it's a bottle of water as opposed to a bottle of wine. So when Cesar wrote this book about sobriety, it really made me think about everything that we're all going through, and how the whole teams are going through, and how this is all connected. So I wanted to just start out asking Cesar a few questions, then we'll kind of break it up a little bit. But does anyone have anything to add before I start asking away? Because this is going to be open to everybody. But so, having read the book, Cesar, and lived through the experiences with you, it was eye-opening to me to see how good you are at snowing everybody.
Yeah.
Does this come naturally, or did you have to really plan it out? Like, how much work? I was totally fooled. Yeah. How much work went into hiding that?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of almost ashamed to say, but came naturally.
Yeah.
I think was part of, I think really began with, losing my mom at 12 in a household where we really didn't talk about emotions, didn't share. So it became very good at suppressing things and pretending life was great. And while, internally is that turmoil and that pain and suffering, but in the exterior, you become very good at portraying what you think people want to see, or what you think is going to get you the least amount of resistance, because I also never felt that comfortable talking about, things that really matter. So whatever you can do to avoid to get that point. So I think then it just becomes a second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Brad, you always came across as a very respectable citizen. I'm going to assume that you're really good at snowing people as well. Did that come naturally, or did you have to work at it?
A little of both. I had to work at most things a bit more than most folks, just because I'm not that gifted, and but never been opposed to working hard. What I would say to your question, though, Tom, is that I think functional addicts have a few things in common, and one of them is they tend to be highly intelligent. Mm-hmm. They also have the ability to be a bit chameleon-like and be able to adapt to their environment and suppress and essentially become great actors to make sure that the audience that they are suppressing and hiding their addiction from, whatever that addiction may be, isn't identified. And if you think about those two characteristics and apply that to our experience with Cesar, not only was he both of those things, highly intelligent and incredibly persuasive, which is why he was in the sales department to begin with, right? His ability to persuade and influence, but you take all that and the fact that he was also just incredibly kind. Those are things that you wouldn't typically associate with somebody who's really having a challenge with addiction.
Right.
So the ability to do that, pull that off at the same time, simultaneously having a serious problem with a substance, is frankly remarkable.
Yeah.
And the fact that he punched his way out of that and has become the human being that he is and leading others to that tremendous path and journey is nothing short of sensational.
It really is inspirational. And I know that a lot of people have shared with me already how inspired they are. So I just have this right here so that I don't mess up the title, but the book, it's not even giving me a face ID here. That's how popular I am. But The Powers of Addiction, Cesar Wurm, Finding Freedom in Acceptance and Recovery. Now, one of the things that Cesar did in this book that I never had the guts to do was be totally open and honest about everything. And my second question is, have you ever gotten any backlash from any of the general managers where you were downing like bottles of wine during the day from the mini bars? Right? I don't want to give anything away, but incredibly honest, open stuff. Mm-hmm. Has anyone said, "Hey, you owe me $950 for this"?
No, not yet. They may now. It's so a couple of things, right? I think when I decided to share this story, I want to make sure that if I was gonna do it, I would be pretty open about it because I didn't think there would be value if I wasn't being transparent. Right? Because part of, whenever you're overcoming any addiction, to your point, Brad, doesn't matter if it's alcohol, whatever it may be, you gotta at least be really, self-honesty is really necessary, right? You may not want to share with everybody, but I thought, well, if I will talk about my journey, I don't want to withhold important things because to the discussion earlier, it's hard, right? Even that I being an addict, my life, it's, you still don't associate success or whatever the case may be with addiction, right? You just picture like my bias as well, if people are homeless, okay, that's an addict. But then as I start getting sober and start meeting other people, you realize that it's everybody. It doesn't matter what it is. There's no line delineating everyone. It's really a disease that impacts anyone regardless of race, sex, socioeconomics. So that's why it's so transparent. But then secondly, I never got any backlash so far. I think that was one of my, not fears, but thoughts that, probably would get some backlash. Thankfully, I never heard anything as being very positive, and I think reassuring that people can relate and understand that, hey, everyone has something going on in their lives, whatever Absolutely. That may be.
And that's one thing that most people have found so inspirational is that you think, oh my God, I'm not that bad. If this guy could get out of that after doing all this stuff, I must be fine. Yeah. And that is really inspiring people. I've talked to a number of people that have read the book, and that's what's connecting with people. And that's why I really like the book so much. And I'm so proud of you for inspiring other people, but also digging out. We're talking about family earlier. I have a beautiful wife, Amy, love her dearly. My daughters, Natalie and Alyssa, amazing grandchildren, life is good and everything. But at this point, we kind of behave because we're brought into things. We're part of a big machine, right? We're all part of it. And you can't screw up whatever because you need your family to be proud of you, right? So now, having been sober for many, many years, all right, if you had this to do over again, what would you change in the process from your struggle?
Wow. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Well, several things, right? Because I think I try not to have regrets in life because I don't think I ever done anything purposely to hurt but I mean, the pain that I caused my wife, for example, it gets to me because, you don't realize at the time, but just the uncertainty. Gabby was just born at the time that really my addiction accelerated. It was around her pregnancy and when Gabby was born. And so she was, of course, as a new mom, very busy with Gabby. And I don't think she realized the extent of it. So I could hide even more so for a few years. And then eventually she realized and said, she didn't know what it was, but she told me, it's like, you're not the guy that I married, right? You're not. And it's like, whoa. And that started kind of the beginning of the awakening. Yeah. So you realize how much pain you cause with people with uncertainty, not knowing what to expect from you. And so that's the one thing that I really wish I could have done differently. It was, of course, many things, but this one, just being more aware of how my selfishness, my addiction impacted others. And it's just not on you, because when I was in that state of mind, somehow it justified it. It made sense. I could justify if I was having a bad day. Well, that was the reason why I was drinking. I was entitled to be hammered. If I had a good day, whatever, there's always a reason. And the entire day was revolved around how I'm going to get that drink.
Wow. Well, we've all been there a number of times. But so now, right, we're sitting here and, I talked about at the hotel how we're into the zero proof movement a little bit and trying to be aware of things. But one of the most important aspects of our business today is inclusivity. How do we make everyone feel like they're welcome at the party? Like back in the day, when we celebrated a win, we all went out and had a few cocktails. Mm-hmm. All right. If there was someone dumb enough not to drink back in the day, they just didn't come along and we didn't care. Right. Well, now you look at it, we've got about 25% of the workforce is either dealing with some kind of struggle or they have a family member dealing with some kind of struggle. And the thought of having 9 shots of tequila with the director of sales is no longer the top of their priority list, right? So how do we bring everyone into the fold and not make anyone feel bad for drinking or for not drinking? Because that's always been an issue. Here we are. I have one hotel. I influence a few guests every week, right? Brad, you have 300 hotels. You have 1,000 hotels or whatever it is, right? Yeah. So what can we do to help make it better for absolutely everybody and not have it be a stigma, because we talk to people, we communicate with people, and let's face it, you guys influence teams of people in how to behave and how to operate. You know what I mean? So this is out there. I mean, how do we get that message out there, and what can we do to make it more inclusive for everyone?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tom. I think, look, while you want to stay genuine and authentic to who you are, I think as leaders, to your point, which is really where your question is getting pegged to, as leaders, we have a responsibility to think about things a bit differently, particularly around inclusion, around fulfilling and understanding other individuals' sense of purpose, because what I heard Cesar just really eloquently talk about was a couple things. He had to find his why. And for him, unfortunately, it had to hit rock bottom, whether that is, and take away the alcohol addiction, you could apply that rock bottom to any big challenging moment in your life. And then it's what you do with that and how you bring in other people. I would suggest to you that everybody's got a sense of purpose and everyone has aspirations. Being able to identify what those are for your team members, those groups, when you're celebrating the wins, but also maybe equally or more important when you're having difficult times is what do you do with that? What is your why? And at what point do you surrender, drop to your knees, and say, I can't do this. I'm in trouble. And to Cesar's credit, he did it before his world spiraled out of control and crashed on him. And here we are today talking about the victory. And it's an everyday thing. This isn't something that's static. You put the victory up on the shelf and it's every day. And so getting back to leading people, understanding their purpose, making sure that you can create a roadmap for them to help them get from point A to B, that aspirational roadmap, and then celebrating that. And fortunately, if you look back to when we were doing it back in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, it was a bit of a different lens to your point. And while it was a lot of fun, I'm not sure it was better.
Absolutely.
I think we've evolved in terms of priorities, in terms of how we lead people, and in terms of how we support one another, regardless of all the things that you mentioned earlier around what curls your toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is a fantastic answer. Anything to add to that?
No, can't say any better.
When I grow up, I want to be able to talk like you do. I'll tell you that. But right now, we're halfway between our questions, and so we're going to do a 3 guys tradition. We've got a few little break questions. All right, let's start with Cesar. Favorite band?
Favorite brand?
Band.
Guns N' Roses.
Like Tiffany is my favorite band. Favorite band?
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Awesome. How about you, Brian?
Either Genesis or Queen or Journey. Hard to put those 3 right at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury was just named #1 frontman of all time, knocking Mick Jagger out of the place, by the way. So a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I really had to name one, it would probably be Led Zeppelin or maybe the Rolling Stones for longevity, and #3 would be Guns N' Roses, you know, just because I've been a struggling guitarist for 40 years. And I know how difficult it is, and I really just appreciate all of the work and talent that these guys have. But there's another 100 bands that have as much talent that are doing incredible things.
No doubt.
And have you guys listened to Greta Van Fleet lately?
I
haven't.
I'm not familiar.
Listen to Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Listen to Greta Van Fleet. They're awesome. It reminds me of a young Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
I mean, just tons of energy, amazing. I mean, we can listen on the way to the airport, right? So, favorite sport. I think I know what Brad's is. What's your favorite sport?
Formula One.
Formula One.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Racing. Yeah.
Okay. A sidebar to that would be, who taught you how to serve in tennis?
I still can't.
He's lying. I played, Steve-O and I played against Cesar, and he beat us both. All right. This guy has an incredible serve, and I couldn't return it for nothing.
Well, the only thing I'd say about that, if you look at you and Steve-O, that's a low bar. I'm not sure that's the benchmark, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, Steve-O.
No, well deserved. Okay, but Brad, I know you've excelled on the field. What's your favorite sport?
Yeah, football, both college and pro. I'm a Penn State guy in college, obviously, and my Eagles beat the stinking Pats by 1 point yesterday in the preseason game.
It was impressive.
Go Birds. Yeah, still really enjoy watching the game, particularly as my kiddos grow a little bit older and sit down on the couch with me and cheer for my Birds. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love the fact that even though it was preseason, Brad and Cesar both came up for the Patriots-Eagles game, just because it's the only time we're going to be able to oppose each other all year long. And that was rather awesome last night.
Great.
So, Brad, you've done a lot. You've seen a lot. What's inspiring you? Like, you've accomplished more than most people, but you keep on going, right? What drives that?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I'm not sure I've accomplished more than most people. I can tell you I've been incredibly blessed to be around some great leaders that have mentored me, given me opportunities where, frankly, I probably didn't deserve. I don't mind failing. I like to fail forward and apply those learnings. I'm not afraid of that. I love God. I try to honor him every chance I get, and he continues to inspire me to try to be a better human being and be more kind and to love everybody. And I feel that every day, and I'm just fortunate that I have a family unit, and not only do I mean my immediate family, my amazing bride, Tricia, and my kids, and my parents are still alive. What a blessing that is at 86 and 83. But my family unit, both from a work standpoint, my social family unit, my close friends. I said earlier at the beginning of this, life's about who you run with, Tommy, and you and Cesar are a perfect example of that. Surround yourself with good people and let them inspire you. But the things they do, talk about inspiration. Look what Cesar's been able to punch his way out of, and now help other people. And you won't know this side of heaven how many people your book has helped, and you being vulnerable, which is a superpower, by the way, especially for men. Being vulnerable has helped thousands of people potentially. So go you, go God. That's what inspires me.
That's awesome. How about you, Cesar?
I can't go after Brad. Is like,
you know what inspires me is when I see how hard my family has worked to accomplish what they've done. My wife, my kids' husbands, what the grandchildren are doing, Tommy and Elliot. Just, I don't want to fail them. You know what I mean? Everyone is working so hard. Now, there are times that I wouldn't mind going on a 3-week bender in Jamaica, right? But the reason that I don't even think about that more than fleeting occasions is that I don't want to let the family down. And that is really inspiring, to me, because, and it's not a negative thing. It's not like I'm afraid of anything, but, you talk about leadership. You suddenly find yourself in the leadership position in your family, and you don't want to let the team down. And I think that that's something that you guys I've seen in action, because you would never let the team down. Brad would take a physical beating to protect his team, and I think I saw part of that one time in a parking lot at the Sheraton Atlanta. But seriously, protecting the team, protecting the family, and it's something that's, as a leader, that's what we got to do, right?
Yes, sir.
So let's get back to our questions here. Cesar, what's your biggest fear?
That really not live to my potential, meaning, leaving a positive legacy, to your point, to the family, to others, and really kind of making a difference. I think to the conversation earlier, got more than I deserve by far in many ways in life, especially having like second chance to start fresh, especially through sobriety. I mean, talking about that, like, never got any major consequences when I could have had thousands.
Yeah.
So just that. So I think just honoring that and being able to make sure that I don't let that go to waste. That's my biggest fear.
Great answer. Do you have any fears?
Load it with them. So at the end of the day, Tommy, there's two types of people on this planet, and it's givers and takers. And there's a bunch of gray in between. But if you want to make it binary, linear, are you a giver or a taker? And you could ask yourself that once a year, once a lifetime, or once every hour.
Yeah.
How did I do this hour on giving or taking? And I use as a crutch, as an excuse that I came up. My father was a cop. We didn't have any money growing up in Philly, but it was the best childhood on the planet. I wouldn't change it for anything. And God has blessed me and my family today with means, and I should be giving more, particularly the financial piece, because it could help, not just my time. And I like to think that I've helped some folks along the way, but my fear of not having that as a safety net is frankly embarrassing and a major fault of mine, because when I have given, it comes back on me tenfold.
Absolutely.
And yet I still don't do it more often. So that's ultimately a selfish behavior. It's one that I need to get better on, and a fear of mine of not having for my kids or for my family, when what it really means is I'm not trusting the Father to take care of me as I continue to give. So I got to get better there.
Well, when you get that straightened out, what's your favorite cause?
Great question. We have a bunch that we are really passionate about and intentional about. Sex trafficking is a big thing that has gotten a lot of traction over the past number of years, but we've been focused on that both as a company, but more importantly as a family. Right. There's a couple organizations that just, She Is Safe is one that just does a fantastic job of taking those givings, those funds, and applying it really to the root cause and getting after those SOBs that are doing that horrible. We lost a child a number of years ago, so we're
never gets easy.
Sorry.
It just never can.
So anyhow, we're passionate about that.
I remember I was blessed enough to be there on the anniversary of that and saw how your family came together and released some balloons, said a beautiful prayer.
Yeah.
I was honored to be there. As I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, but really,
sorry about that.
It was powerful, and it's something that never goes. And that's why I feel blessed to have a great relationship with God, because when I feel like there's some despair, I can reach out and I get healed.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I wish more people were aware of that, honestly. But everyone for themselves. You're on your own, guys. So do you psych yourself into behaving every day? Like, do you have to have a minute that says, I'm not going to drink or do whatever? Do you do that every day, or is it just something that you think about on occasion?
Yeah.
And I say that because I quit smoking cigarettes about 30 some years ago, and I wish I had a Marlboro Red every day. I have to psych myself out of that. But, yours is more life changing.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have to get yourself into the mindset?
Not anymore, not like that. But to Brad's point earlier, it's definitely something you got to be very aware, because even though today I don't crave and I don't want, I know that can be, a flip switch, and if I ever touch again, it's over.
Right.
And that will, I can't let that happen. But it was interesting is because the sobriety process, it took me a long time from kind of realizing, hey, I have a problem, I need to do something about it, to really taking, having that level of awareness, awakening, and the courage to say, okay, this is it. never again.
Yeah.
And during that time, what really got me to do that was a hourly, was the entire time. And then, but thankfully became very easy choice for me because it came to, okay, do you want the drink or do you want your family? Because you can't have both. So for me, that was always very easy. Whenever there's the temptation, you see that glass of wine or people are partying, it's like, okay, I know that is an easy choice for me. So thankfully that carried me over, as of now. But I think it's very important to stay centered. So, for example, I have a morning routine that besides praying when I wake up, then the second thing I do is like positive affirmations. So I do that. So I believe that if I try to stay healthy, mentally, physically, that'll put me in a better position to not have the temptation. Because if you get in a dark space, and then I can see easily myself getting there.
Yeah.
But it's work.
It's awesome. But I mean, to your point, part of your daily affirmation, is probably reinforcing all the hard work that you put into this. And then the other thing is, Brad, you're a very well-behaved individual these days. Does that come naturally, or do you have to think about it? Like if you're driving down the street and you'd like to punch the guy driving the car out, do you think, let me not do that? I'm just going to mention this one more time to stay in his lane, or is it just come naturally?
No, look, you 55 years old, you'd like to think that you've mellowed a little bit and you apply some past learnings and wisdom to your current behavior. And it's hopefully a part of everyone's journey. There's moments still, though, where you got to put a governor on yourself because 26-year-old Brad is still somewhere in there. I just got to make sure I keep that guy buckled up. Yeah. But it's a good question. Work in progress every day.
Well, you do an amazing job.
Well, thank you, Tommy.
So in the book, Cesar, I love how you break down the process of what happens and kind of explain it to people, because you tell about this very personal aspect and then you explain it in scientific terms that are dumbed down for people like me that can actually understand it. And thank you for dumbing it down from all the technical jargon. But it really is a very thorough explanation of what's going on. So how did you learn all that stuff?
Yeah, it was unexpected. So I always have been very curious as to how I got there. Right. Yeah. How did that happen? Because I've always been a big drinker, big partier. But at some point, I believe there is that, the flip, right, where it goes from a social, even though I was always probably in the, I was drinking heavy from 14 years old. So it was, it was part of my routine. But it was important for me to I always had curiosity. Okay, how much does gene plays into it? How much does choice? And so on. So actually, I was so it was last year, I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Higgins, the Addicted podcast, Addicted Mind podcast, and she was a guest, and she does biomarkers. So that you start realizing, okay, so these are the genetic propensities you have, and based on these, and then I did a test. So that's where I start learning a lot of that. That's still a little bit like Greek to me, but it helps understand. It still doesn't give you 50% of your addiction was from genes, right? So it's not clear cut, but it's very easy to see that I have genetic fault or
genetic
markers that are okay, this is clearly a correlation. And then, of course, then your lifestyle, your choices, it's a second factor, and then you start just kind of building. So that was something that was much later in life and just happened right before I was kind of writing the book.
Yeah, well, it's super helpful for anyone that really wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that aspect of it, because I really had no clue before reading that.
Yeah.
And I actually feel better about my own decisions kind of based on that, knowing that you're inclined, to have 14 cocktails on occasion. So it's something to just be aware of, right?
Yes.
And everyone has their own level. And, Brad is a guy who can sit down and have one cocktail and that's it for the night.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You're one of those people that are not fighting the battle that Cesar is, and that, through my whole life, I've always tried to keep it in line. It hasn't worked very well, but, you try.
Yeah.
But so I know you went through AA.
Yeah.
All right. I've never been to an AA meeting, although a lot of people have suggested I go. But there's a certain step where you go out and apologize to people. All right. So how long did it take to apologize to all the women that you broke their hearts? How long did that take?
It's interesting. So, in my opinion, like, this is the third most important step. It was interesting because in AA, I don't go anymore. Well, I go from time to time, but when I first went, it was like I said, man, these people are crazy. It's like these people are like, I'm messed up. Right. Wow, man. Right. Whoa. But that, the more you hang around, you start seeing the similarities, the correlation, and how what's the fine line between a guy that's sitting next to you that been to jail 10 times, got 3 bankruptcies, lost everything, and like someone like myself, where being very fortunate to still carry on kind of a normal life, right? Having financial safety, having a family that somehow is stuck with me. So that was something that was very helpful, that really I believe that helped me keep alive for the first 2 years, is being in those rooms and listening. But that's the step 9, where you make amendments, and it's hard. Sometimes actually not too long ago, someone popped in my mind that from years back that said, you know what, I wasn't good to that person, and so you got to go back and just say, hey, listen, and apologize, and it helps you a lot, and helps a lot of that person too, because sometimes when I first was going to that, I said, what do you mean apologize for what? I was just drinking, right? I didn't hurt anybody. But then when you start thinking, it's like, whoa, and you start thinking like how you behave, how you pull away, or when you do things that you're not aware, but you hurt someone. But to answer your question, there was one girl that I apologized, that I consciously, didn't do right by her. And she was very, very kind to me.
I've actually discussed this topic with a couple other people, and one of them was saying how if it's something that's going to cause pain, if I'm going to go back in there and open up all kinds of wounds, then I don't want to do it because I'm doing them a better service by moving on. Now, that's been the one process that has stopped me from going to AA and apologizing to everyone, because I've been not the best person my whole life. I've tried to do good these days, but I was not always the best. But it's a big factor in having people forgive you for what you do, whether you're aggressive or drunk or whatever, or just not keeping your priorities straight, right? You let people down, and being open and honest and sharing, at one point, is it not worth it by opening up the old wounds? I don't know. But I try to apologize to everyone. If there's anyone I offended, I'm sorry about that.
There you go.
So, as we're winding this down, aside from buying the book, which I highly recommend, and I got a lot out of.
By the way, Tom wrote the foreword.
I was honored, and that alone is worth the price of the book. But is there any advice that you would have for someone who's struggling, or someone that knows someone that's living with someone that's related to someone who's struggling? In hindsight, what's the best first step?
Wow. I think Brad touched on it. Is, I think, learning your why. I think that first you got to have some self-awareness and have an opening to kind of But once you kind of realize, hey, I may have a problem, like, what's your why? Why, you want to stop? You got to be something really strong. Yeah. So for me, it was my family, my daughter. Like, she was 2.5, 3, growing up with a dad that was an alcoholic. I recall living that pain. And I told myself, man, you're doing, more damage than your dad did. And you despise, still have a lot of anger towards that. And I said, I can't do that. I can't live with myself knowing that. So that was my why. And that's something that is always going to be very strong. So I think that's the one piece for the person that's trying to get help. And then, find whatever works for that person. A lot of people is, religion, AA, therapy, whatever. People are wired differently, and whatever helps you to get better, embrace that and go all in. And then I think for the family, for people, it is hard because we know someone that is going through that now. Yeah. And all you can do is try to provide support and love, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can't do the job for them. And I think you got to have that tough love where you still support, but you don't enable. Mm-hmm. That's a fine line, and every situation is different. But the biggest thing that I tell people that are going through it, and family or friends, is that it's not a choice. And I know that choice plays a factor, right? You got to make a choice to stop. But I never met any addict that wants to be an addict, right? No one wants, man, I want to be an addict, right? Because it's not a good life. No. Even though at the moment you feel high, you feel good, it's not a good life. And so I think that's, it's not your fault. It's you're loved, and there's always a way out. There's always a way out, and you got to embrace it. And, and a big reassurance for me is the other day when Gabby, she read the book. Her daughter's 13, and Laura and I were in the kitchen, so she came down and she looks Laura at her eye and said, "Mom, how come you didn't leave him?" And that is like, and that is so true, because people ask me if it was the other way around, mm-hmm. I wouldn't have her strength. I feel so blessed, and talking about apologizing, I always apologize. Like, I was like, can't imagine what I put through, and for her to stick with me and be so supportive. So I think that is, if you have someone like this in your life, don't take it for granted.
Yeah. One of the things that the three of us were talking about in the car is how lucky we are that we have not just great families, but great wives. I mean, there's hundreds of people out there that look at this that are like, oh, yeah, I've got a great life. But I know the relationship you guys have and how inspiring that is. And I'm thrilled with mine. Couldn't be more happy. But that is such a blessing. And I wish everyone had that, someone that they can lean on, depend on, and be inspired by. And Laura's just a fantastic human being, as is Trish, as is Amy. We're very lucky. So on behalf of the Three Guys podcast, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. And if this gives you any inkling on how much you can benefit by a little sobriety here and there, share it with someone. But thank you for watching. Have an awesome day. We're going to get these guys to the airport.
Thank you.
Take care.
Safely.